This young man right here is the face of feces across Canada. I know it sounds strange, and he probably wouldn't appreciate me saying it. He probably wouldn't accept it outright or take any pride in it. But the man he's become today certainly is proud of it. This is the story of how I came to be the face of the Canadian Continence Foundation. Let's start from the beginning. I was born with what's called a high imperforate anus. Sounds fun, doesn't it? Very exciting times for me at birth. It basically means that I was born without the actual anal opening. So at birth, they had to actually create it through surgery. I like to tell people that doctors made me an asshole. Therefore, I'm not necessarily completely responsible for all the words and actions in my life. And if you feel that way by the end of this, just remember, it's not my fault. I was also born with what's called, without a sphincter muscle. For those of you that aren't aware with this is going to get a little descriptive for you. But the sphincter muscle is that handy little muscle in your rectum that holds everything up that basically makes you continent. Without that, I'm sure you can imagine the type of life I may have led over the last few years. So that's come with many challenges in my life. Challenges like depression, anxiety, panic attacks, failed relationships, anger issues, things that I've had to overcome, and I'm happy to say I have. But I didn't do that alone. I did that with an incredible support group around me. And that support group starts with my family, and I'll get to them in just a moment. But I didn't really realize I was any different from any kid until I started going to school. I went to kindergarten, grade 1. I started having what we all termed in my household as an accident. And I'll tell you about those later. So I'd have these accidents at school, and some of the kids sort of recognized that it looked, that things weren't right with me. They didn't really act very negatively at that point, but as I sort of progressed through school, in particular into elementary school, it came much more obvious. I wore diapers until I was 13 years old. That was a little hard to hide from kids at school for very long. So going through elementary school, that's when the bullying began, and the bullying was quite relentless. Picked on, called names, shamed in the schoolyard, beaten up. But that's where the support group comes in that is so important for anybody that's going through a challenge. And I'll start with my mom. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she was really there every time I came home to console me if I had a bad day, if I came home at lunchtime, and I would tell my mom, I was picked on, I was beaten up on the way home, I was ridiculed, and my mom was like, kick ass and take names. My mom would bring me back to school after lunch, and she would meet with the member of the school faculty, tell them what happened. I always had to tell my mom the names of the students, even though it was horrifying for me to do so, but she made sure I did. I would tell, and my mom would talk to the parents, and that's how she dealt with things head on. She was like a super mom. My dad's role was just as important, and my dad's here tonight. He's one of my heroes. My dad was a very prominent businessman. He was a senior partner at an accounting firm, and if I called my dad at work, he could be sitting across from a multi-million-dollar client, and he would excuse himself. He'd say, I'm sorry, I have a minor family emergency. I have to leave. And I mentioned those accidents earlier, and it really doesn't do it justice to paint the picture for you. And when I had an accident, sometimes it was so bad, I had soiled myself so bad, I would have to tuck my pants into my socks so that it didn't leak onto the floor before I could obviously try to find a payphone, because we didn't have cell phones in those times, so I always carried change. I'd find a payphone in the school, or I'd sneak into the nurse's office, and I had simple words to say to my dad. I said, Dad, it's me. I've had an accident. And my dad would jump in the car, garbage bags in tow, to line his seat to protect the upholstery. Sometimes we would put holes in the bottom of the bag so I could slide it in. And my poor dad would arrive at the school parking lot. I was nowhere to be found because I'm hiding. I've just crapped myself, I cannot be out and about. So I would hide in the bushes. In the fall, maybe I'd be hiding in a pile of leaves, and my dad would have to wander around the parking lot to figure out where I was. One day, It literally was in the fall, and I was in a pile of leaves because I had soiled myself so bad that I needed to hide it and the smell. And some kids started coming around me. You can imagine I think I was about 14 years old at the time, and they find this guy in a pile of leaves. Like, what are you doing in a pile? Like, I don't know. I just love the fall. Just trying to make up stuff. I had a good imagination. So my dad, as he always did, he deftly distracted them and brought them away. I dive into the car, and it was interesting because I don't know where it came from, but I just happened to have a mental strength, and probably from my parents, but as soon as that incident was done, it was done. Like, I had my accident. I don't care. It's one incident in a long life, and that's how I always thought about it. Just off I go to the next day. Now, the other thing I had was an abundance of energy. As Christine told you, I am a very energetic person. ADD, ADHD, you can call it what you will. It serves me well in my profession today. But back then, trying to find focus for yourself as a kid, I needed my parents to help me with that, and boy, did they ever. My mom used to joke with me, listen, if Ritalin was around when you were a kid, if it was popular, maximum dosage. But I didn't need it because oftentimes, what's interesting as an adult, so hosting a television show, which great idea for someone that's incontinent, get into television. Live television in particular. But when people, come and see the kind of energy that I have, they always say, oh my God, where do you get your energy? I wish I had your energy. That's amazing. Like, what's the secret? When you're a kid, they're like, oh my God, we got to do something with this kid. Like, let's get him counseling and medication or something. No, I got into sports. And I didn't just play one sport. I had a chip on my shoulder. I played every sport. I joined football, I joined basketball, I joined soccer, I played competitive squash, I did diving lessons, I did swimming, I went to camp. What was I thinking? I'm incontinent, I go to camp for 2 weeks. Like, are you an idiot? But I want my brother and sister wet. I was like, there's no way, man. I wanted to be treated the same as every other kid. And then growing up, my best friend was my brother. My brother and I did so many things together, but I think you all understand, when your best friend's a member of the family, you still try to find that, you think to yourself, there's that special stranger in the world that I'm going to connect with. And I just kept looking for that. It was like part of my pursuit of happiness. I am going to find a best friend. And in grade 6, I literally ran into who is now my best friend today. We were going around the corner in school. I was in a new school, and we ran into each other, like books flying and everything. And this young man, his name was Gary Fields, and I was in a new school. I was like, oh, incontinent kid, new school, ran into somebody. What's going to happen? Gary just starts laughing. He starts laughing. He introduces himself to me. I'm like, are you a real human boy? What is this? What is this kid? And he introduces himself, and we had the same sense of humor. We had sort of the same caring nature. There was something special about this guy, and we were inseparable. It was almost immediate, and that was the first person outside of my family or friends of the family, close friends of the family, that I sat down and I told Gary about my incontinence as a 13-year-old can, 12, 13-year-old can. And he just shrugged his shoulders. Really? That's it? He just shrugged the shoulders? And it's the end of the conversation, and that was it. And Gary was amazing. Like, we would, as I said, inseparable. We'd go to the movies together. And I would have an accident. I would whisper to Gary, I've had an accident. I got to go. Gary would make sure I got up first and follow me to the bathroom so that nobody else could see. After I cleaned up, Gary would walk behind me all the way home from the movies. And I didn't live just around the corner. And I felt bad for him because we're having a conversation like this the whole way. Felt like kind of an idiot, but that's a special person. And the reason I bring up Gary, and I try to bring up a few people like my mom, my dad, my brother, my sisters, my extended family, Gary, the Goodwin family, who was a close family friends growing up. They had a cottage we went to every summer with 3 just lovely boys. Never, ever questioned, asked anything. It was my sanctuary, my piece of heaven. I was away from everybody and everything. It was awesome. And that's what I always tried to get away from is thinking about it all the time because it consumed me. In school, I was a terrible student in school because I just sat there thinking about, oh my God, I got a stomach ache. What am I going to do? Okay, do I leave here quickly? Oh, what if I get up too quickly? What's going to happen? I think I missed 50% of what was being said in school. It was frustrating. I had terrible grades, terrible student. And then moving into high school, boy, I got the best friend. Now I'm going into high school, and what do you need? I need a girlfriend. I'm incontinent. I'm not getting a girlfriend. It's impossible. But, that's, you just reach out. And I always got along with girls. They always seem to be the ones that come to your rescue in the schoolyard. Boys are picking on you. Girls come in and go, whoa. And it's done. Like, I love you girls. Women should rule the world. I am telling you, I know from personal experience. So I had this, again, it was like, I got the best friend, I need a girlfriend. So I started getting, I had a few girlfriends, but as soon as we started getting close, as soon as intimacy was even a thought, it was like, I just completely back off. And let me tell you, I was so desperate for a girlfriend that I never broke up with them, but they certainly broke up with me because I just stopped talking. And when we got intimate, it was impossible. There's no way I was going to let this girl know that I'm incontinent. I thought, my God, you're going to think I'm absolutely disgusting. That's the thought I had. And then I moved into my late teens, early 20s. It was probably my darkest times. I made horrible choices. I dropped out of high school 3 times, finally graduated Dad. He's very proud. Dropped out of high school 3 times. And I was in such a dark place. I was so depressed, I considered taking my own life. And I had planned it out. I was living with Gary. And, for someone that has this pursuit of happiness, I was like, you know what, I'm really unhappy. And something struck me. It's like, maybe it's okay that I'm unhappy. Like, we can't be happy all the time. And that's what I always tried to do. And I just had a moment where I went, wow, I'm really unhappy. I got to figure out something else to concentrate on. And what I figured out is, hey, wait a minute. What about all those people that supported me for all of these 20 years? Like, don't I owe it to them to be here tomorrow? Gary was in the next room. And I thought about Gary. I was like, oh my God, that friend will come into this room tomorrow and find me. And what's that going to do to him? What's that going to do to his life? So I completely changed my mentality from that time forward. I said to myself, you know what if I tell people? Maybe I should just start telling people. I mean, what's going to happen? Are they going to treat me like an outcast? This is what my thought process has always been. So I did. I started telling people. And as I said, great decision. Incontinent, let's do live television. So I was hosting a live television show in Ottawa, and I'm in the green room, and I have a chance meeting with the executive director of the Canadian Continence Foundation. She's my guest on the show. I'm like, really? And in passing, I just say to her in the green room, you know what? I suffer from chronic fecal incontinence. I've been incontinent since birth. She's like, no way. It was like an incredible reaction. Really? I'm like, whoa, lady. A little too excited about the incontinence. She's like, would you mind sharing that you're incontinent on the show, like when we do the segment? And I thought, you know what? Yeah, it's time. So I did. I shared it live on the air that day. I think that's about 5 years ago now. And then I shared it on social media. I wrote my story on social media. The outpouring of love and support was unbelievable. I was just absolutely overwhelmed. I had people who said, I'm incontinent. I haven't left my house in a year. This man hadn't left his house to go to a wedding, a funeral. He writes me, and I said, dude, I'm on TV. You've got urinary incontinence. I crap myself. Go swim. Go water skiing. What are you doing? Go to the wedding. And so that was just a complete eye-opener. And, my wife and I, we try to choose a word every year that we're going to use, that we can, it's our word. We're going to take possession. This is our word. And our word this year is grateful. And grateful for so many reasons, but grateful that I have this medical condition. I really am. Because I found that what happened was I could connect with people better. It made me more sympathetic. It made me more understanding. It made me connect with people. When I sat across from people talking to them about their own challenges, I felt a real spiritual connection. And, the theme of this is cultivating the future. And how would I cultivate the future? Is caring for people, telling people how great they are, celebrating their successes. We're so consumed with ourselves that we forget that just saying, hey, you're great, what a great feeling it gives to somebody. To see somebody's reaction when you say that to them is an absolutely beautiful thing. I'm grateful too that I have it, because when my wife and I are intimate, you don't understand. It's like freaking magic. My wife holds my hand even. It's like she's holding my hand for the first time. When we make love, it's magical. And I believe in my heart that no one else feels that. They don't feel the magic that I get to feel because of what I have. Like, wow, it's just an unbelievable feeling. I'm going to leave you with this quote. And it's been attributed to a lot of people over the years. Most people believe it was an author by the name of Carl Buhner. And this is what he said. He said, people may not remember what you said, people may not remember what you did, but they will remember how you make them feel. So make people in your life, it is so much easier than being miserable. Make people feel good in your life. And I hope I've made you feel good today. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak to you.